the local community through subsidized lectures, music programs, and film screenings that reflect the rich heritage and diversity of Jewish culture, and to ensure the future of Yiddish through language education. Please go to our website, chicagoyivo.org, for more information and to become a member or donor. Your financial support helps us bring you programming such as we have today. Today, our program, we have Steve Gibons. He has a wide breadth of experience performing ethnic music ranging from Klezmer, Muslim, and Roma people from North Africa, Spain, and Eastern Europe. He has long been a favorite of YIVO audiences. Please help me welcome Steve Gibons.
Thank you very much. And I'll start by introducing the group because it's not just Steve Gibons here. I'm joined by Carlo Basile, who's a flamenco guitarist and composer on guitar, and Ronnie Malley, who plays oud, percussion, and many other instruments and composes as well. And I play in violin. We're going to start, I want to say a couple of words about the context of this concert. I wanted to do something kind of important to me and special. And one of the things that has been kind of a bug in my ear since I've been playing any kind of Jewish music, whether it's Klezmer or Oriental Jewish music, is that from before I was born, the possibility for me to just kind of like join in and play some Arabic music with other Jews, for example, hasn't been possible, really. I mean, there are people in Israel doing that, but my whole old fantasy of traveling to some foreign place, meeting people by hazard, and then discovering their music and that sort of thing, that would have been so awesome if I could have done that. And I've done that with Romanian gypsy music and with French gypsy music and that sort of thing, but I never had an opportunity to do it with Oriental Jewish music. So what we want to show you today is how we've kind of lost, as Jews, we've kind of lost a bit of our culture that comes from countries like Syria, Iraq, Iran, Egypt, and other countries in the Levantine. And so we're going to play for you tunes that sort of reflect that. I'm going to pass the microphone to Ronnie now, and he's going to tell you a little bit about the song he's going to sing.
Thank you, Steve. So I remember when we were working on a piece once, a few pieces actually, a selection of repertoire for a service we were doing at a synagogue here in Chicago. And this was one of those pieces that we stumbled upon in a wonderful website called piyut.org. And these are piyutim, basically hymns. And this is a piece that really stuck because the mode or the scale was a Middle Eastern scale, and it is from the Syrian tradition, but it's actually an old Sephardic poem. And the piece is Ben Adama, son of the earth, or Ibn Adam, son of Adam. And this is a piece that's actually Syrian Jews used to sing on the eve of Yom Kippur. And in addition, according to the Aleppo sources, the melody is also used for the Kaddish in Yom Kippur as well. So this is a piece called Ben Adama, and it's mainly from the Syrian tradition.
Carlo, move a little bit this way so you're in the front.
Ben Adama, Ben Adama, Yazko Moladeto,
clapping. All the ones at home.
Sound of one hand clapping.
Now this, let me grab that mic. This next melody is known as a folk melody, but it was very, very popular, and it's very likely that the Kuwaiti Brothers arranged it for radio, for different singers. It's called Fug il Nakal, and this piece is just a popular kind of a folk song that we love to play. And I wanted to say a couple of things about the Kuwaiti Brothers because they're a really great illustration of the kind of sorrow that was generated because of, what was going on in the world. The Kuwaiti Brothers were Jewish Iranian, from a Jewish Iranian family born in Kuwait, and they moved to Iraq, to Baghdad, where they eventually became the most celebrated composers in the golden age of Arab song. You might know names like Kulthum and Fariz. These singers were just like superstars, and so were these guys. They were the directors of the Baghdad Radio Orchestra, and were just leading a life like that. And after Israel became a state, a lot of Jews emigrated to Israel from Iraq, and the Kuwaiti Brothers expected that they would be received with the same kind of tone that they were used to in Baghdad, but that was not the case. When they got to Israel, they were not celebrated, and they ended up running a grocery store and doing little weekend gigs like bar mitzvahs and stuff like that. And that's something to grieve for, I think. On the slightly brighter side, Daoud al-Kuwaiti's grandson, Dudu, who's named after him, is a rock star in Israel, and he has done an album where his group is called Dudu and the Al-Kuwaitis, and he has reprised some of the pieces that they made famous, and Fug il Nakal is one of them. We're going to play that for you now.
مدري لمع خدك يابا مدري
Oh, thank you. Sir, can you please sit down? Sir,
Can they keep it down just
we'll
a
get
little?
the usher. Somebody get the usher. This, I think he's... Oh, that doesn't look good. Well, we're going to go on to the next piece now. Number 3, Basile.
All right.
Actually, I'm going to ask Ronnie, and I'll tell you, frankly, the reason I asked Ronnie and Carlo to do this is because I've played with them recently and had a lot of fun. But also, Ronnie is a true scholar of not only of the music, which he is. He's played it all his life with his family, but also with the juxtaposition of Jewish and Arab. And if you could say a couple of words about that, that would be great, and then we'll play Basile.
Sure. You know, my family is from Jerusalem, and we grew up understanding that, you know, this has been a cosmopolitan place since time immemorial. And so we grew up listening to a lot of different music, but I also grew up playing music with people from various backgrounds who were Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Armenian, Iraqi, spoke Aramaic, and a variety of these different styles. And I've always considered myself really just a part of all of that, the history of the geography of that region. And in doing so, it led me to really dig deeper into the styles of music that come from these traditions. And one specific style that really captivated me was the music that came from Andalusia. And there's a particular tradition that people, sociologists, have come to call convivencia, which is the coexistence. And what they mean by that, and what is still to this very day played heavily by the Spanish government, is this coexistence that had been between Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And at the time, the Iberian Peninsula had been under Islamic rule for many centuries. However, Jews and Muslims truly prospered during this time and collaborated and shared in one culture with various different traditions. And it's no more evident than when you listen to the music, and then the poetry as well. And so this next piece actually is a really beautiful piece because it has part of the Moroccan tradition in it, but it's also sung in Ladino, which was the language of Sephardic Jews, which is partly Spanish and with Hebrew mixed into it as well. So this is a piece actually that is called Desele al mi amor, tell my beloved to bring the mule and carry me away. So it's usually actually sung by a young lady. I was very fortunate to actually learn this song and a great deal of the Sephardic music by performing some concerts actually with the Newberry Consort, when we did an entire Sephardic concert, and as well with another Baroque orchestra called Apollo's Fire, where we also introduced not only Sephardic music, but music from Jerusalem as well. So this is Desle al mi amor.
Desde a mi amor si me bien quiere
Well, while we're, let's do Coney
What is that?
Coney Day.
Oh, gotcha.
This is a Sephardic tradition of this, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
So there was a, let me grab that. In Morocco also there was a large Jewish community, and there the rabbi, this rabbi, I can't remember his last name. Eliyahu was his first name. That'll zero in on it. This rabbi that I learned this piece from YouTube, I found it. This piece was recorded probably not too long ago, but this would have been what he sang back in the 50s or 40s in Morocco, and he was like kind of a superstar there. People would line up for services just because he sang so great. He also sang liturgical music to popular Arab melodies. And, you know, like, if you can imagine how that would be if, you know, some rabbi started doing Beatles music, well, I think that might have actually happened. So, with Yom Kippur coming up, I wanted to bring this to you. This is a kol nidre, but instead of the one that we know here in the West, which is the Bruch Cello Concerto, basically, this is completely different. And it's, well, you'll hear how it's different. This is another Moroccan piece of music. And that's all I'll say about that. Now we'll just go ahead and play it. I'm gonna have to tune up a little bit. Thank you. So let's stay in this Andalus, Morocco region, and Carlo and Ronnie and
He
Carlo.
has the R on his cup.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Now I'll remember.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Ronnie and Carlo
Sure.
will present Sevillanas that has an Arabic poem that goes with it. If you could say a couple of words about that, that would be great.
Sure. So, kind of continuing on that tradition between Sephardic Jewish, Arab Muslim, Moroccan Muslim, the unity and the collaboration from translations to poetry to musical styles of this shared culture culminates in this particular poem. And this is a poem by a 13th century poet by the name of Lisan ad-Din bin Khatib. And he talks about the nostalgia, the longing for Andalusia. In it he says, you know, the mist of rain, of culture that came from Andalusia, was it merely a dream or did it stealthily pass in reality? And I'm reminded actually when I was doing research on this of a poem that I found by the Rabbi Yehudi Halevi, who was a very celebrated rabbi poet from Andalusia. And he said something very similar in his Ladino's Ibero-Romantico language. And he says something to the effect, his words were, Vese mu corochon de mib, ya Rab si me turnora. Tan mal mu doler lil habib, enfermo yet quand sanarad. My heart has left me. O Lord, will you transform me? So great is my pain for the beloved, it is sick, when will it be cured? And what's fascinating about his poem is that he's also using Arabic words with the Ladino because it was the lingua franca at the time. So So here's a piece that's actually from a traditional flamenco style of dance called Sevillanas. And here it goes. An original composition by our own Mr. Carlo Basile.
Beautiful, man.
Thank you, thank you.
I think the cat liked it.
I think the cat
The cat liked
really
it a little
enjoyed
too much.
that.
I had to
If you didn't see
take
the
drastic
methodology,
measures.
like-
Yeah, well, you know, I almost ran when I saw that light too, because I always.
I know.
Yeah.
I sometimes trick myself, you know. Great.
All right, that was fun.
So we still have time for a few more. So which we have not done. Let's why don't we do a just a great tune like a longa.
Oh, the longa will be fun, yeah.
Okay.
That'll rock the house.
Farafaza,
Yeah.
also known as longa liad. Let's just hit it.
bet. You know what's very interesting about that form and that style? You notice it kind of has a Romanian vibe to it. Some of it's even a little bit klezmer in some ways.
Well, listen, we're going to play a tune in a minute.
Yeah.
That has the same bit. Let's show them, okay?
For sure, for
So,
sure.
Open the Kolomeki, and we'll play that in a minute. But we're going to show you a little preview because a little pedagogical break here.
And this is a form too that kind of grew very popular during the Ottoman reign, especially like in Turkey and in the Levant, as a style form that they would hear from the Roma.
Right.
And the longa originally became a classical form, but the influence of the Roma on that style of music, on klezmer, on all of this kind of upbeat music.
When in the 1800s and before, but we have recordings from the late 1800s in Romania. Gypsies and Jews would play together when there was a gig. It was a question of getting musicians. It wasn't a question, well, we're having a bar mitzvah, so we got to get Jewish musicians or anything like that. It was like it is now. You know, you go look for a musician and you don't know where to look. Luckily, back then, though, there was sometimes like a park in Bucharest until the end of the Ceausescu regime. There was a park there where the musicians would just hang out all day, and people would come to hire the musicians, and they would actually know all these musicians because they've seen them play so many times, and they would choose the own people that they wanted. So they would put together the whole band. I can imagine the kind of like jealousy that would happen. Oh, you chose. You should. He made a big mistake there. So, and then the Romanian music in the late 1800s was like kind of like the way Cuban music is for us. You know, you go dancing, it's super joyous, kind of sexy, and that's what Romanian music was, and for me it still is. But it's really interesting, and what Ronnie was saying about the form, this last section that we play, the part that goes like this. Listen to that, the last section of Kolomeki. This is a Ukrainian horror, but it's like core klezmer repertoire. All klezmer bands play this tune, and you know, Jews at parties dance to this all the time. No, we're just going to show them I want to show them just that last section.
Absolutely. Of this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we have, in the langa, we go like this. And then in the Kolomeki, later on, we're going to go like this. It'll be the same key. I don't know if you get it, but it's the same idea, even though there's a different number of accents. It's very interesting. In other words, the groove changes for that last part of the tune because the dance is going to get bigger, and that's where everybody goes wild. So let's see here. We have time just for those two, or do we have? We need three. I think we. Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, so let's do it.
What are we doing?
We're going to do a little medley. This to follow in what Ronnie was saying about gypsies and Jews working together. The next tune we're going to start with is it's known as Oriental Horror, which is kind of odd. I learned this from a cassette tape of cylinder recordings of old Jewish music. Thank you. And I played it for a long time. And then when I had the band Gypsy Rhythm Project, some of you might remember Nikolai Ferraru, the great cymbalum player who played with me for years. Now he's living back in Bucharest. I said, hey, I've got this really great tune, man. You got to check it out. It's so cool. It's just the grooviest thing. And so I started playing it for him. He says, no, this is Romanian tune. There was no doubt, you know. And we talked about it. And kind of like what I learned there was not only that the music is shared, but I sort of expected him to be like, hey, wait a second, that's not, that's misattribution. But actually, it was fine. It was interesting to him that this tune became part of the core of klezmer music. Really interesting stuff. So this just goes to say that gypsies and Jews, Arabs and gypsies, everybody and everybody, we play music together. And what you are is not that important. Only to big politicians is where that's important. And that is the really sad thing. But this is not sad music. Well, it's a little sad. Then it gets happy.
It's a little sad.
It's a little sad, yeah. All right. So let's do it. Let me get that sheet out too. thank you. Let's stand up, guys. Let's take a little bow. Thank you, thank you. Yes, sir, I'm glad you're feeling better. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to turn our speaker on now in case anybody has a question or something to say, because our speakers are very low, so we don't hear you. I'm going to turn the mics down a little. Okay. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our program. And I'd like to thank Fran from YIVO and YIVO for having us here and for having me back every year. I know we missed 1 year, but this is great that we're back, even if it's online. So if anybody has a question or two.
I have a question. This is Jake Morowitz.
Hi. Hey, how's it
Hi.
going?
There's still a large Jewish community in Iran. Is there contemporary Jewish music being produced in Iran?
I'll let Ronnie answer that. I guess because I don't know the answer.
There is still a community there. You know, where some of it's actually probably being produced is more likely in LA.
Yeah.
Where there's a huge Iranian community there that's Jewish, Muslim, Parsi, which was the Zoroastrian religion there as well. And it's quite, I mean, they call it Tehrangeles, to just give you an idea of how many Iranians are there. And there's a huge Iranian Jewish company there called Sadaf, which you've probably seen their spices in the markets and everything. Oh. And that's actually one of the companies that puts it out. So the culture is quite alive, actually. But also in Israel as well, too.
Which is, Israel is where many Jews went. So there's lots of different things, lots of different cultural things happening in Israel, lots of different music being played. So that is going on, but I don't know. Iran itself, you know, is kind of a closed system right now.
For all music, not just...
Right, exactly. So anybody else would like to know something?
Some stuff on the chat if you want to read it.
Oh yeah, there is. I'm going to go walk over to the screen and look at the chat.
I think you can unmute yourself now.
We're muted?
Are we muted?
No, we're not muted.
No, not you.
Oh, somebody wants to ask a question. So we have a question from Giannis. Where would you geographically locate the source of this music?
It was from everywhere.
Well, yeah, I mean that was kind of the point we made.
Syria.
This music was from Asia, so Iraq, Iran, also Levantine, so Syria. The first song that Ronnie sang was a Syrian song, even though it was in Arabic. It was Hebrew. I mean, okay, now you get it. Now you see. But if you go on YouTube and do a search for Oud Syria Jewish, you will find a multitude of great music, Arabic music, played by Jews. It's really amazing to see. The first time I saw it, I was like, wow, I didn't even know. And the other music we played came from Morocco. Andalusia, which the south of Spain, across the straits from Morocco. Did I leave anything out?
We went basically from Iran all the way to southern Spain.
Yes, exactly.
So that was the majority of where the music went. But, you know, it was less important to some people, especially during particular times in history, who was playing the music and what they were, but rather than just that they were musicians getting together. Up until the mid-50s, even a little bit later, half of the orchestras in Iraq were comprised of Jewish musicians. And many prized musicians, and even one very famous Iraqi singer, Nazim al-Ghazali, his wife was Jewish and taught him a lot of the music.
Half of the people in the orchestra in Iraq were Jewish until the 50s.
Yes, that's what I had said. Yes, exactly. And it's amazing. I've worked with a lot of Iraqi Jewish musicians and performers as well. It was so hard. I think we talked about this one time that if there was a gig on Saturday, the Sabbath, it was difficult to find musicians because so many Jewish musicians were part of
in Iraq.
In Iraq,
Right.
in Iraq, yes, in Iraq. A lot of very famous Jewish Egyptian composers and players as well. It's just to say that what we call today the Mizrahi Jewish community, it's just kind of a blanket of saying, you know, the Oriental Jewish community. But if you go to Jerusalem, even up until the 60s.
I can't hear you.
So sorry, how's this? Is this better?
I'm going to turn our volume up and turn their volume
A little better. It is hard to hear.
Sorry about that.
It's much better.
Just wanted to say that, you know, a lot of the music that, you know, you might consider from what people say Mizrahi Jews, which is a blanket term to say just Oriental Jews, comes from different regions with different cultural backgrounds. In Jerusalem itself, up until the 60s, there was an entire community of Moroccan Jews living together playing Moroccan music, not even just Sephardic, but Moroccan Jewish music, Kurdish Jewish music, Central Asian Jewish music.
Of course, we did that. We did. I don't know if we did that together. A couple years ago, I produced a concert with a man from Uzbekistan, and I learned the most amazing things. In Uzbekistan, since the 1100s, Jews and Muslims lived like side by side, and they maintained their religion. And and the Jews actually adopted many of the customs. You know, we're talking 1100 A.D. Like polygamy. I mean, that is like not a Jewish thing, right? But it was just very interesting. They dressed the same, and even today, a lot of the Uzbekis that I met as musicians are in New York City, and I went there to check it out. And they are not like even competitive. Muslims and Jews play together. They have their own versions of tunes. So one will say playfully, like, "Oh yeah, that's the way the Jewish guys play it." But you know, we play it like this. And the Jews are like standing back. Okay, yeah, fine. Say whatever you want. You know, our version, but it's all, you know, the love of music and the experience you have when you play together. It doesn't matter who you're playing with, and I speak from experience. You can play with somebody you really hate, but you end up loving them. It's kind of like this musician love, even though you wouldn't socialize with them at all. And it repeatedly you can do this, and it really just generates this feeling, this positive feeling. Playing together. I don't know if that transfers over into politics, though.
No.
Carlo's got the answer.
No.
It doesn't. Politicians have an agenda. We have a repertoire and a set list.
That's right. That's right.
That's the difference.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure playing for you, even though we can't hear you clapping. But, oh yeah, the guy in the balcony, he's always standing up. Thank you. And thank you, Tom, for engineering this, and thank you, everybody. It's so beautiful to play for you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
See you next year. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you very, very much.
Shalom, nitchaot.
Au revoir.
Masalema.